What's going on, and welcome back to the channel. Yep, you guessed it. I've got my son's truck back in the shop. Last week, did not film it, but I did do a new set of injectors on his truck. Primed up and started just fine. The next morning he went out to start it and had a little bit of a hard start issue. The next morning would not start at all. So this is where we're sitting. We're back here in the shop again. I do have my scanner hooked up. I've got it set to set rail pressure. Right now it's a crank no start, and I'm only getting about 1,350 pounds of rail pressure, so that's nowhere near enough to start the truck. Some of the things I have done to try and increase rail pressure, I have checked the regulator right there. You can see at the end of my finger, kind of, maybe, sort of. How about right here? I have checked the regulator, or the relief valve, sorry, and there's no fuel coming out of that, so that's not stuck open to allow it to not build pressure. I did unplug the regulator on the back of the CP3 to put max pressure for the CP3, and still will only build about 1,350 psi of rail pressure. So right now this is where we're setting. I'm gonna go ahead and set a graph on that. So we got your set point, we're gonna have your regulated out, and then we also have the rail pressure itself right here. So we're gonna go ahead and crank it over. And you can see we're just over 1,500 pounds there. So we're not getting nowhere enough fuel pressure to be able to start this truck. So my next plan is to start checking injectors. I'm gonna start capping them off. I'll pull the fuel lines off. I'll cap that said cylinder on the rail itself and see if we can get this truck to fire just on 5 cylinders. See if one of the injectors are actually bad. If that, and whatever we find, if that injector, if there is a bad injector, a fuel tube, I'm gonna retorque that fuel tube, make sure that everything's set right. Just going through and checking everything. So right now, what I have is I bought a set of these on Amazon. This is for a 5.9, and then I do have them for a 6.7 as well. This is for a 6.7 rail. So you just take your fuel line off, you put this on there, and that caps off that cylinder to see if we have a bad injector. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that set up, get that number 1 cylinder. I'm gonna start with number 1 before I tear everything off to reach the rest of the cylinders, because I can get to it without having to remove anything. So I'll just loosen up the line at the fuel tube and then take it off here. Loosening both ends up allows me to move the fuel line around to be able to cap off said cylinder on the rail. Loosen it up here at the engine first. Spin it off. You do have to loosen up both ends to be able to get that fuel line moved out of the way, to be able to tighten these plugs up. As you can see right there, I put that cap on. That line is loose, so number 1 cylinder is capped off. We'll see if the truck will start or build enough rail pressure to start now. Still have the key on, I still have the graphs running. So you can see the set pressure is still the same. Go back. You can see it right there, the fuel pressure, the rail pressure right now is at 658. Right now, we gained enough rail pressure to be able to start the truck. We're just about 7,000 psi rail pressure. So that tells me right there I've either got an issue with the injector or I need to retorque the fuel tube. So I'm going to go ahead and tear that apart, retorque the fuel tube first, and see if that takes care of it. That truck started off pretty easy with just capping off that number 1 injector. In the box right here, I do have a brand new Bosch in here someplace. I believe this one's it right now. A brand new Bosch in here that I took out of cylinder 5. This one's it right here. So I may try and put this one in cylinder 1 and see if that would take care of the issue as well. I don't have a new fuel tube for it is the only crappy part. I could run to my part store and grab one if they have them in stock. I don't know if they keep fuel tubes in stock, but they're gonna take care of everything. I did call them already and let them know that I'm having a crank no start issue after a day of running these injectors, and they're going to take care of everything. So I guess right now I'm going to go ahead and tear it all down, and just enough to be able to replace number 1. Unfortunately, the air horn has to come off because nothing will come out because of the grid heater. So all this stuff has to come off to be able to pull out cylinder 1 tube and injector, which sucks, but it is what it is. All right, so we're tore down to the point to where I can pull the injector out. I have not loosened the nuts yet for the injector hold down, but I do have everything removed. Unfortunately, for cylinder 1, you do have to remove your intake elbow because the grid heater gets into the way from pulling this fuel tube out. So right now I'm going to go ahead and loosen up those. They're an 8mm socket, and then I can pull this injector out. You don't have to take all your lifters or your rocker arms off rather to be able to do this job. You can, if you want to, just remove your exhaust rockers, and then you can remove all of your injectors. When I do a full set of injectors, I go ahead and remove everything, tear it completely down, take the rocker assemblies off, pull off the rocker box. It just makes everything, it just makes it a lot easier to be able to work, to get in there, to tighten things up, torque things down, and have adequate war room to work. So go ahead and get those loosened up and pull this injector out, and grab that one from the box over there, put it in, put everything back together, and see if that takes care of the issue. This is why, hopefully it focuses. This is why it's a good idea to put new fuel tubes in anytime you do new injectors. Can I get it to focus? See that right there? Where that groove is at. When you torque these down, it actually presses this into that injector body and makes a good tight seal. Now these only go in one way, they're keyed. You see that little knob right there? So that's why it's a good idea to do new fuel tubes anytime you do new injectors. This is just for the sake of trying to get this truck up and running. Now, when the new injector gets here, we will put a new fuel tube in with it, but I want to get this one running, this cylinder running. That way, if there's any other issues as far as checking the injectors, if there's any other bad ones, at least we have number 1 fixed, because I know that injector that's over there on the bench is, for the most part, new. All right, anytime I swap injectors out, I definitely want to make sure that's all nice and clean down inside there. And I'm actually gonna use this fuel tube because it doesn't have that crushed edge on it like this one here does. So I went through and looked at the best one. This one here is the best one, so we're gonna go ahead and use this fuel tube versus that other one. Like I said, this will get all new as soon as those get here. This is just for this fact of trying to get this truck going. When you put these in, you want to make sure and have this hole going that way so it can accept that fuel tube. Push down till you hear that snap. And then I start my bolts. And you want to tighten them up evenly, because this hold down, it rocks on there. not like on a VP truck where it's just a cap on top of the injector. So I always tighten these down evenly. 44 inch-pounds on the first torque, and then you put your fuel tube in, and that gets torqued down to 11 foot-pounds, and then you go back and torque this to 89 inch-pounds and then 37 foot-pounds. And then you should have everything set at factory spec. All right, now we can pull the rag out of there. Gonna go ahead and leave that open, make sure there's nothing here that can fall down in there. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and throw the grid heater on there just to keep stuff from falling in there. And we can go in the cab and try and start the truck. All right, gonna go ahead and scanner's still hooked up. We're gonna get rid of the regulator output and just graft the set point and the rail pressure itself, and we'll see what happens. Truck fired right up. Hit the wrong button there. Let's go down to fuel pressure. You can see right now we're 6,700 at the rail, and set point is 68. So it seems like it was just number one was the issue. We'll go ahead and get this truck put back together. Hopefully this takes care of everything and we can keep it on the road. Gonna go ahead and get them called, let them know we only had one bad injector to send us out a new injector and a fuel tube. I could run it like that, but I really don't want to. I want to just have all new because we paid for all new. Anyway, you know, we're only human. We make mistakes. It's a machine. It's a moving part. There's no way to know that that could be bad. Well, okay, there's no way to know that it's going to go bad. In reality, when I took that valve cover off, I did smell some, like, the burning electrical. So I wonder if the electrical point of the injector went bad. And that's what caused the failure for number one. Don't know, but there was a strong odor. I'm sure most of you guys know what burning electrical smells like. So at least we got it back together and it's taken care of. Not thumbs up, fingers crossed. A little premature on that. So I guess with that being said, it's pretty much all I have for today. If you guys don't mind, hit that like button, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you have not already done so, and we'll see you guys in the next one.